Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic / Non-Classic. This is episode number 498 and Doubleshot number 411. At this one, 2 more episodes. As of right now, 2 episodes to go until I reach episode 500. Alright, 2 DC trades, and both of them are not only trades for DC, but also for Rebirth, and they're both second volumes for the respective series. First up, it's Deathstroke, Volume 2, The Gospel of Slade. Collecting issues 101 to 111. The reason why I'm actually saying those numbers have basically 6 to 11 because that's the issue, how many issues so far has been published for the series. Written by Christopher Priest, with Larry Hama on breakdowns, with also artwork by Carla Pagadian, Kari Nord, and Dennis Codwin, with Sean Davis, Michelle Diskey, and Alex Sinclair doing the cover art. Yep. This one features some stories in here. Now, basically, there's the first 3 issues basically deal with the professional storyline, still continuing this trade. Which I keep wondering, why couldn't they put out a previous trade? I don't know. The first one is just a standalone issue, just dealing with just Deathstroke going on a mission to rescue Red Lion, which, from what one person said, he is literally a ripoff of Black Panther. Yeah. His real name was Matthew, but one person theorized that this character is a ripoff of Black Panther because Christopher Priest wrote Black Panther. Yep. And that's pretty much standalone, just getting him, and of course also stuff with Jericho and Jericho and Rose. Also, first Flashline appearance of Patricia Trace, the second woman to hold the name of Vigilante. And yes, this is the same woman from the Marvel Deathstroke run from the 1990s. And yes, that is the same exact outfit she wore during the run. And she also briefly did have an affair with Deathstroke. And he's also the one who trained her to be the Vigilante. Yep. Yeah, she's in here, though she's a little bit older, and and I think one of these she suffered a stroke. And yeah. So, and next couple issues is Deathstroke versus Superman. Yep. That's what next 2 issues are. Deathstroke versus Superman. Here's Deathstroke drawn by Carla Pagadian and Larry Hama. Yeah, very good artwork I got handed to this thing. Yeah. That's simply what the next 2 issues are. Deathstroke versus Superman. Which the same thing happened in the first volume of the series, where Deathstroke had to fight Superman. So this time, basically, it's Adeline Kane, a.k.a. Deathstroke's ex-wife, just to do it. And I love this opening page for part 2 of the professional conclusion. Take a look at this thing. You have Deathstroke versus Superman. This is one awesome way to open up a comic book. Yeah. I think this is issue 108, I believe it is, yeah. And yeah, Deathstroke is also wearing a special outfit that allows him to be seem like he's semi-immortal, but it seems like his suit makes him bulletproof. Yep. We also introduced Dr. Arthur Villain. That's this guy here. He's basically Deathstroke's physician. I don't remember if this guy was in the first volume. I know Wintergreen was. Yep. Let's see, what else? Next we have the 4 rooms, which I think takes the rest of this trade. Rose looking for her biological family, looking for her mother's family. Her mother is not Adeline Kane. That was implied in the second volume that her mother was Adeline Kane, but basically this volume reversed that retcon, where her mother is basically not Adeline Kane, but somebody else. But her Deathstroke is still her father. Yep. And this is basically kind of, well, actually, for it's 2-part. This is kind of, if you look at this costume, it looks very much kind of like the first ever Deathstroke costume. But take a look at the close look at the mask. It looks very similar to the mask that, design-wise, it kind of looks like the mask that Manu Bennett wore on Arrow, the first official mask he wore, not the classic-ish metal one he wore, basically the cloth mask. That's what this mask kind of looks like. Yep. Yep. And then we also, I think and this is the last issue right here. Last issue we have Deathstroke versus the Creeper, making his first appearance during the whole Rebirth era. This is actually his first appearance since the Katana ongoing series. Yeah, that was the last time I could think of he showed up. I read the ongoing series after officially ended. Some people say that the series was terrible. I read the series. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? This is actually a really dang good comic book. I'm sure Mike Burr basically be happy with it. Though they kind of changed and implied that Katana it's implied Katana may have killed her husband, and even though it was somebody else actually did kill her husband, it's implied that she actually the one who did it. Yeah, and of course this is all Chicago. That's basically the last issue. And Bill Sienkiewicz does the inking this one with Denise Cohen doing the artwork. Yeah, this artwork is fantastic. Yep. The reason why, now, starting with next tree, he goes back to a different costume, which I'll basically get to that in next episode. But yeah, he's still wearing his Rebirth costume. And look, here's what the Creeper looks like, drawn by Dennis Cohen. Basically, yeah, it's basically very heavily inspired by the Steve Fickle design, which I'm glad they finally went back to that look. I didn't mind the New 52 design, but at least he's back being the Creeper. He's no longer some kind of Jack Ryder still reporter, which I think is great. Yeah. And this is just one fantastic trade. And I highly recommend people who are fans of Deathstroke, if you're basically familiar with the character, mainly due to the Teen Titans TV show from the early 2000s, I do recommend this. Pretty much all 4 volumes. Second volume, basically, it's up to you because the first 8 issues are really good. And then, basically, Rob Liefeld takes over for the remaining year of the comic book before it ends due to low sales. Yeah. And, of course, you have the Tony S. Daniel / James Booney run, which was the previous volume, which ended last year. And you have this volume. Oh, and don't forget the Marv Wolfman run from the 90s. That one is currently being collected in trade. I believe it's only about 3 volumes in right now. 4th volume is coming out really soon. Okay, but this is great. I get this a 9.5 out of 10. It's just that damn good. Alright, next up is Justice League of America, Volume 2. The Curse of the Kingbutcher. Written by Steve Orlando. Artwork by Felipe Wannabe, James Campbell, Jamal Campbell, Anthony McDonald, and Neil Edwards. Felipe Wannabe Hi-Fi does the cover art, the covers. Hi-Fi, those of you really coloring crossover, Hi-Fi inked. He actually colored a couple of the parts of that storyline. Now this collects issues 7 through 11 of Justice League America volume. I think this is volume 5. I had to look up and see exactly how many issues these issues are. Let's see. No, that's not it. Let's see. This is 5 issues. These are issues 352 to 356. That's basically what these issues are. And first you start off with a standalone issue with them fighting this guy who looks kind of like Dr. Alchemy. Yeah, this is him on the cover. Yeah, when I look at this guy, he kind of looks like Dr. Alchemy from Flash Comics. They say he's like, let's see. What do they call him? They call him, it's not Terror Strike, that's the name of the story. I'm trying to look it up here. Let's see. What did they call him? I think they mentioned it a little bit later. I think they call him the Terror Man. Oh, Terror Smith. Okay. That's what they call him. But looking at this guy, he looks kind of like Dr. Alchemy. Yeah, that's what he kind of looks like. Yep, that's just the first issue. Second issue is just basically the Justice League dealing with a ripoff of Conan of Khazar. Yeah, that's literally what this guy is. This guy's name is Mason, and to me, because he's in a place called Monster Valley, which is clearly a ripoff of the Savage Land, and this guy is clearly a ripoff of Khazar, and because he's rich, he comes from a rich family. Though in the case of Khazar, he comes from a British nobility. This guy is just a guy who's head of some activist group, basically, he's basically a cheap beneficiary. And this is a quick little 2-parter. It's okay, it's not bad, but it's got good writing with it. What what them finding out exactly what Mason wants to do. He's used by the people who actually are the actual heads of it to massacre all people who's getting the money. That's really the whole point of this two-parter. And then the last 3 issues are just them versus a guy called the Kingbutcher. And this arc has a kind of a connection to the first arc of this run, where these guys he's from the Lords. He basically is representative of the Lords of Order, and like Lords of Order, you mean Havoc? Yeah. So this is kind of implied to be a follow-up to the Lord Havoc and the Extremist arc. Yeah, that's literally what this is implying. But also basically restoring kind of what looks like to be Lobo's pre-Flashpoint origin story of him being responsible for the destruction of Caesarnia, his home planet. Yep, it's stated that yep, he blew up his home planet. Yep, and they go to what's the name of the city? Vanity, which is basically the Ray's hometown. Which also basically this is kind of also not only a follow-up to the first arc, but also a follow-up to the Ray one-shot. Which hey, you got praise Steve Atlanta for doing that. Yep, and they revisit like a woman who basically helped, sort of, because of Ray's powers, because he broke out at the age of 8. Apparently, he was held in his home for years because of his unstable powers and became a superhero. And his, I think it's supposed to be his adoptive mother, I think it's supposed to be. Yeah, apparently she didn't like his powers very much, so she kept him, she basically held him in prison for years, and then he broke out. Yep. And then with the trade ends with said signal found, which means the microverse stuff is already up the next trade, basically the return of Ray Palmer. Yep. Something that this run had been teasing for a while, which, hey, you got to praise it, basically, Steve Orlando, for not taking too long, per se, to get up to it. Now, this particular run, this series, unlike Steve Orlando's other series, Supergirl, this series comes out twice a month. So, we didn't have to wait too long for this. I think we only had to wait, this started just this past February. So, we only waited like 6 months to get this, which wasn't too long. At least 6-7 months-ish, basically, because issue 1 and the Rebirth issue came out in February. So, not too long to get to this thing. So, we have this other stuff to deal with it. To sort of, let's say, move along. But, yeah. This is actually pretty good. I would say the best story here is probably the Kingbutcher story. Yeah. That one is probably the best one of the 3 stories in here. The Mason story is okay, but as far as I can tell, I don't think Steve Lenz has any more plans for this guy. He just brought in for this quick little 2-part story before he deals with the whole thing with more stuff with the Lords of Order. Which, I'm thinking about, yeah, last time I checked, one of the representatives of Lord of Order, I think is supposed to be Dove, of Hawk and Dove. She's supposed to be one of the representatives of Lord of Order. Oh, and also they also reference Anoman in here during, I believe it was the, I'm trying to think, I'm not sure which arc it was, but they have it where the Atom and Killer Frost go to this guy who basically helps stabilize Anoman powers, and he tried to do the same thing with Killer Frost powers. It didn't exactly work, but it's nice that they reference to Anoman. I don't know if there's any plans being a Rebirth. I hope they give it a series or at least do something with the character. He's an awesome character. And I've read this entire series. Excuse me, so there's that. Also, Mason's funds basically are transferred over to Vixen because he knows that Vixen will put the money to good use because he says he has no use for money because he's basically ruling Monster Valley. So, yeah, there's that. So, pretty good set of stories. I would say the weakest story is probably the first story of the trade. Kind of, yeah. Because the whole Tara Smith guy, basically, I've never heard of this guy before. I could say also that another week, I would say the best story is Kingbutcher. I could say the Tara Smith standalone story could be the weakest one, but I would point the finger definitely at the 2-parter piece in this guy, Mason, as the weakest story in this entire trade. Even though, basically, yeah, you got more money to Vixen's Foundations, but it doesn't really advance the plot of the series very much. It's just a quick little 2-parter, just featuring this guy. He's just a throwaway character. But yeah, pretty good. I'm gonna get this book a 9 out of 10. Even though I gave the first one, I think I also get that 9 out of 10 as well. But yeah, that's Curse the Kingbutcher. But the only reason why I would definitely say the Kingbutcher story is better, because 1, it's more interesting. 2, it's a follow-up to not only the first arc, but also the Ray one-shot, because there different stuff that happened in that particular one-shot But the ending of it sets up the next story arc, which is awesome. And I can't wait to get my hands on the next trade, which I think comes out, in a couple months. Let me look it up here. Let me see here. When does that book come out? It's taking a little while. Yeah, and I'm trying to look up see when this trade does come out. Let's see. Okay. This book doesn't come out until... Yeah, let's see. Wow. Okay, so apparently this book doesn't get released until March. So basically I have to wait 4 months for this trade to come in. Volume 2, which I just reviewed. That came out just... I know it was just recently. It just came out. Let's see. This came out... Wow. Okay, this one came out just recently. I'd say almost 2 weeks ago it came out. It came out the 14th this month, and it's only... Today is the 28th. So basically, yeah, it's been 2 weeks since this book was released. So that book was pretty recent. So yeah. So that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which I have another DC trade, and it'll be a one-shot. It'll be a single shot next episode. But hopefully the double shots will be back for episode 500. Okay? But until then, I will see you all in the next video.